it's time for Lefties Losing It. And here are two lefties discussing the Kamala strategy of refusing to do any press conferences or even any interviews with friendly media. She's that much of a liability that they can't trust her to sit down for a friendly chat with one of the many Democrat fanboys and girls in the media. But that doesn't trouble filmmaker Quentin Tarantino. He's fully on board.
This is about winning. What most people don't give the Democrats enough credit for, all right, but we give the Republicans credit for. It's like, no, sometimes it's just about winning. And it doesn't matter how we look at this moment. It's about winning.
Right.
This is about winning.
Yep. No, it is.
It's a mad dash, and she is running, and she's not stopping to stumble.
And you know what?
And there's nothing wrong with stopping this. I'm going to vote for her anyway, no matter what she says in a stupid interview.
Exactly.
So don't it up.
Oh dear, did he just say the quiet bit out loud? Ooh, here is another lefty who is backing the thoroughly inept Kamala, but at least he's calling her out for her reluctance to do an interview or press conference. This is Stephen A. Smith.
I'm talking to my sister here. Come on now. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. You got my vote. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. What you hiding for? And I mean hiding in plain sight. Somebody got to say it. Somebody got to say it.
I've been saying that for about 3 weeks, but nice to see the occasional lefty catching up. Now let's hear from a trans activist who accuses others of not knowing what gender is.
Half of you are not sure what gender is, especially transgender. I know the lawyer said transsexual earlier. That's not the correct term. It's transgender. I'm a transgender woman. My pronouns are she, her, and I will only accept those pronouns. I will not be addressed any other way. And in the workspace, I'm protected by that.
Now I love this next woman who is pranked by a dude pretending to be a lefty. See how she reacts when a Harris wall sign is put up on her property.
Hi. Hello there. Hi, I work for the Harris and Waltz campaign. Take it off. No, I'm going to leave it there because...
No, you're not going to leave it there.
Oh, why?
Because I can't stand them.
Do you not support tampons in men's bathrooms?
No, I don't support tampons in men's bathrooms.
Why?
Because tampons are for women. Where are they going to stick it? Up their Get it the out of here.
Well,
Get it out of my property.
It looks good there, though. Wait, don't touch my sign. That's my sign.
I don't give a They're a bunch of communists.
You didn't address me by my pronouns.
Now these signs, I think, would be far more popular in that neighbourhood. You know, it's always disappointing when you find out a great comic actress is actually a lame lefty. Losing it. When the world-class writers aren't around, this is what happens.
Well, what we really need is a phenomenon. A what? A phenomenon.
Oh, dear. The cringe fest didn't end there.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday.
And it wasn't long before the MAGA fans were making little adjustments to that last clip. Most of them I can't show you, but this one is wholesome enough. And look at that, they've got a Melania lookalike there. Now, what a shame to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus engaging in these lame antics. I preferred her earlier work when, in a role as Veep, she was unintentionally mocking future Veep Harris.
My fellow Americans, words have many meanings, and sometimes instead of conveying our meaning, they can suggest other meanings.
When we talk about the children of the community, they are children of the community.
Well, we are the United States of America because we are united. And we are states.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
Whatever we have in store cannot be known.
The past was once the future. The future is, I should say, unknown.
We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
Obesity is a serious disease, and it needs to be taken seriously.
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
I hope that clarifies the issue, and this can be the last word on those words.
Now to a former CNN hack, Don Lemon, who, along with other media, was circulating utter bulldust about the massive big names who would be appearing at the DNC. Of course, this was all to boost the TV audience, which was down on previous conventions.
I'm sure you guys have read all the headlines, all the stuff on social media about who's going to be at the DNC. Is it going to be Beyonce? Is it going to be Taylor Swift? Here's what I hear from sources. If it's going to be anyone, it would be Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and George W. Bush speaking. Those would be the heavy hitters. And it could happen. I'm just saying.
And plenty more lefties with my next guest. And it was a case of where is the president and where is the vice president? Both Biden and Harris failed to turn up to Arlington National Cemetery to honour the 13 service members who died in the botched Afghanistan withdrawal 3 years ago. But President Donald Trump was there.
Present! Oh!
It says plenty that both Harris and Biden were not even invited, but President Trump was. Now, they weren't too busy. Biden had no public events scheduled. He was at his beach house, and Kamala also had no public events scheduled. I don't know, she was presumably busy practicing her different accents. Joining me now is Senior Editor-at-Large for Newsweek and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, they've had many failures during the Biden-Harris administration's almost 4-year reign now. But to my mind, the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan is in the top 5.
Yeah, Rita, look, I was actually a conservative pundit who actually thought that the U.S. should get out of Afghanistan. I actually was calling for this for a while. From my perspective, after Osama bin Laden was taken out in Pakistan due to the Taliban and Afghan forces helping to harbor him, obviously. But after that, in my perspective, the mission in Afghanistan was actually done. There was no need to get into this nation-building crusade. But having said that, there is a correct way to do it, and there is a very incorrect way to do it. And to this day, those images, those videos that we saw, the people falling off of the convoy planes as they were taking off, the weapons left behind at Bagram airfield. I mean, we saw a military parade in Kabul just a week or two ago. The Taliban just going through the sea, showcasing hundreds and hundreds of everything from Humvees to shoulder-hoisted rocket-propelled grenade launchers to small arms, AKs, ARs, you name it there. I mean, that is our U.S. taxpayer dollars that is literally funding a terrorist organization. I mean, it doesn't get more explicit than that. So absolute shame for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to not take questions from the press on this very solemn day. On the flip side, though, huge political coup for Donald Trump. He has very sound instincts when it comes to this sort of thing. This is not the first time that he has kind of pulled a stunt like this, but it's not just a stunt. It's also very much the right thing to do as well.
Oh, absolutely. And former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard noted that as well. She's endorsed Donald Trump. She told the National Guard Association of the US, of which she is a veteran, that Trump understands better than Kamala Harris the grave responsibility of the office. And she also explained a little bit about why, after 20 years in the Democrats, she is now backing Donald Trump.
So I mean what I say when I share with you that I know that President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears for every single one of our lives. Whether you're a soldier, you're an airman, a Marine, sailor, or a coastie, he keeps us in his heart in the decisions that he makes. We saw this through his first term in the presidency, when he not only didn't start any new wars, he took action to de-escalate and prevent wars. He exercised the courage that we expect from our commander-in-chief in exhausting all measures of diplomacy, having the courage to meet with adversaries, dictators, allies, and partners alike in the pursuit of peace, seeing war as a last resort. The truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris. In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief.
Josh, you also spoke about observing Donald Trump with the Gold Star families and noting how he really understands and appreciates the sacrifice of those who serve. This is a powerful endorsement.
Extraordinarily powerful. I mean, it's probably important to remind the viewers here, you know, Tulsi Gabbard ran for president of the United States as a Democrat just 4 years ago. I mean, she was in that very crowded primary, the primary that Joe Biden ultimately won, the primary, by the way, in which Kamala Harris did not get a single primary delegate because she was out well before the first votes were cast. But, you know, this is consecutive weekdays, Rita. So the Tulsi endorsement was Monday here in the U.S. RFK Jr. endorsed on Friday. You know, those are two very, very, very prominent ex-Democrats who are endorsing Donald Trump now, frankly, for very similar reasons, too, actually. If you connect the dots between these two high-profile endorsements, they're both talking a lot about the fact that Donald Trump is a man of peace, which actually makes a great deal of sense when you consider the fact that during his 4 years as president, the world was not on fire in virtually every geopolitical and strategic theater that you can name. Vladimir Putin did not invade Ukraine. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas were not circling up on Israel. Maduro down in Venezuela was not trying to invade oil and natural gas fields next door. China was contained in the east and south. I could go on there, but it's such a turning of the script, Rita, from where the two parties here in the U.S. were as recently as 15, 20 years ago. You know, back when John McCain was running for essentially a third Bush term back in 2008, you know, Republicans at that time were the party of spreading democracy and these moralistic boondoggles overseas. You know, how the script has turned now in the year 2024. You have former Democrats endorsing a Republican for purposes of peace, whereas the Biden-Harris establishment is in favor, frankly, of these feckless forever wars, including the Russia-Ukraine theater.
And let's not forget that when Trump first ran, one of the biggest warnings we kept hearing is he's going to start World War III. It's going to be catastrophe for the world, not just America. And of course, we had 4 years of peace. We had the Abraham Accords. We had all sorts of normalizations of relationships. And since then, we've seen what's happened under the Biden-Harris administration. Now, let's talk about the vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, Kamala's VP candidate. He's been accused of lying again. Walz has already stretched the truth, and that's putting it kindly, on his military service, his wife's fertility journey. Is now being accused of claiming awards he never received. A 2006 letter from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce has resurfaced, reprimanding the then congressional hopeful Walz for claiming on his website that he had received an award from them in 1993 for his work with the business community. The letter is fairly strongly worded. It reads, "We researched this matter and confirmed that you have not been the recipient of any award from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to draw a conclusion about your intentions by including this line in your biography. However, we respectfully request that you remove any reference to our organisation, as it could be considered an endorsement of your candidacy." From the DUI lies to the tampons in boys' bathrooms to stolen valour. I mean, this guy is a bit of a disaster, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. And, you know, when you consider how Tim Walz progressed, I guess would be a polite way of putting it. I guess Barack Obama would call it evolved. You know, when you look at Tim Walz's evolution from when he was a congressman representing Minnesota to his time as governor, you know, you see how dishonest this man is. And I say that because when Tim Walz first ran for Congress, it was back in 2006, which was a difficult cycle for many Democrats, and he was running actually in a Republican-leaning district. He actually took many right-of-center positions. He stood for relative fiscal sanity, actually. I mean, this is the guy who now is saying that one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Back then, he was preaching fiscal sanity. He actually even garnered an NRA endorsement. He was a defender of the Second Amendment, of your right to keep and bear arms. He spoke at AIPAC conferences. He was a reliable supporter of U.S.-Israel relations. I mean, I could go down the line here. But then when he got into the governor's mansion in Minnesota, everything changed. He became the single greatest banner of the flames, frankly, of the George Floyd riots of 2020. I mean, those riots started in his own backyard. He abetted them. He set up a COVID snitch hotline to rat out your neighbors if you were so much as congregating outside there. I mean, the guy just went from a centrist Democrat to a hard left socialist loonbag. And the fact that he was so dishonest, I guess, in retrospect, when he was representing Minnesota in Congress for 12 years. I mean, you look here at these statements from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, it kind of all makes sense. But, Rita, hearing that quote there, and it's a rather funny quote, actually, from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, here in the United States, I guess the equivalent expression of what they're trying to say, at least in the southern U.S., would be bless your heart, which is a very, shall we say, kind way of giving someone the middle finger.
Yes, it sounds polite, but it's not. Now, Trump may have got the endorsements of Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, but I think the most powerful endorsement he has in recent days is this, because many establishment Republican figures, the Rhinos as they're known, Republicans in name only, are throwing their support behind Kamala Harris. There's around 200 former staffers of President George Bush, George W. Bush, and Senator John McCain and Mitt Romney backing Kamala. And I think this is wonderful news for the Trump campaign. I wouldn't be surprised if this makes his next ad.
Yeah, I mean, this actually is really exactly what I was talking about just a few minutes ago. I mean, how the parties have switched over the past 15, 20 years or so. I mean, back then, the Republicans were really the party of these neoconservative boondoggles. They were the party of laissez-faire fundamentalism when it came to so-called free trade with our geopolitical foes, such as China. And back then, at least the economically populist, bordering on socialist wing of the Democratic Party purported to stand against those things. They were against wars. They were against free trade absolutism. They supported economic nationalism. And, I'm simplifying a little bit here, but 15, 20 years later, the script seriously has changed there. So, I mean, I'm not particularly surprised that a lot of these flunkies, the people that failed us in Iraq and Afghanistan, that had the wrong idea, the people that had this idea that admitting China to the World Trade Organization on a most favored nation status with the United States, the people that thought that would somehow end up as a good deal for the United States taxpayer, for the United States worker in the Rust Belt, the people that thought that would be a good idea to give our arch geopolitical foe the very rope with which to hang ourselves. I'm not surprised that these bunch of bumbling idiots are now endorsing the Democratic Party, because the party of Donald Trump and the current Republican Party has moved in a very different direction. I am happy with that, and I am frankly happy that they are not happy with that.
Now, Josh, Facebook is claiming that it made an error, an innocent error, when it removed a page critical of cultural Marxism. This was a page connected to conservative liberal arts college Hillsdale. But these mistakes are happening way too often near an election, and it always seems to be in the same direction. They claim it was just taken down in error, it's been restored, but I'm a little bit dubious of that, because I see this over and over again. And as I said, it seems to be these mistakes are only ever made against conservatives.
Yeah, it's tough to say what's happening in Meta right now. Mark Zuckerberg is actually giving us very mixed signals. So it was actually, less than 24 hours ago that he sent a very interesting letter, Rita. I actually just saw this letter just an hour or two before I hopped on with you. And in this letter that Mark Zuckerberg wrote to Congressman Jim Jordan, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, the strong conservative from Ohio, in this letter, Mark Zuckerberg actually, admits that the Biden administration was coercing Facebook to censor COVID-related speech. And then he says that he regrets not speaking up in hindsight because the government's trying to censor Facebook is actually wrong. So he's trying to do a bit of an about face here. And I also note that after the near Trump assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania last month, I also note that Zuckerberg had an interview where he said that Donald Trump came off looking like a total badass, frankly. So I mean, I'm not sure exactly what Zuckerberg is thinking these days. He's giving us very mixed signals here, to be honest with you. What I do know is that I have long been of the opinion that we need something closely approximating common carrier regulation, the same way that your cell phone is regulated and you can't censor on the basis of content there. That is the way it should be for the social media platforms as well.
And I think that's precisely what he's terrified of, and why he is. He can read polls as well as the next person, despite Kamala's resurgence. I think he's expecting a second Trump term, and he's trying to win back favour, to memory hold the fact that he personally donated, 450 million of his own money to fortify the last election. And to me, it's just all too little too late. It's too late now to come out and talk about how Meta was coerced to censor particular opinions or individuals. And I think he's particularly terrified of J.D. Vance, because this seems to be a passion project for him, tackling big tech and the almost virtual monopoly some of these organisations enjoy. Josh Hammer, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time this evening.